14 years ago, my mother gave birth to twins. A passing sage, upon touching my forehead, remarked with a smile, "This girl possesses extraordinary fortune, reminiscent of a motherly figure destined to reign over the world." Having said this, he turned to my sister with a furrowed brow and cautioned, "This girl's fate is fraught with tribulations, and calamities may befall her kin." In a bid to safeguard the prosperity of the Pei family, my grandmother contemplated ending my sister's life, fearing that the shedding of blood would taint my auspicious destiny. Instead, she commanded that my sister be sent away under the cover of night. From my earliest years, my grandmother has been exceedingly strict with me, asserting that I am destined to enter the palace and become Empress. Yet, to become Empress entails marrying the current crown prince, Wei Chong, and I have never held a fondness for Wei Chang's character, always perceiving him as a sanctimonious hypocrite. I once shared this sentiment with my grandmother. On that occasion, she reprimanded me sternly and punished me to kneel in the ancestral hall for an entire night. As I knelt there, I could hear her outside, sighing deeply. Alas, no matter how noble or esteemed a woman's fate may be, it will always pale in comparison to that of a son. Thus, I have long understood that the Pei family's kindness or cruelty towards me is merely a means to secure future grandeur and opulence. The maid Lian Hui entered to announce, "Miss, Lady Li has come to request your presence," stating that Madam has fallen ill again. I set aside the half-embroidered fan and hurriedly lifted my skirts to stand. My mother has long suffered from ill health, spending most of the past decade confined to her sickbed. The physician attributed her condition to the toll of childbirth years ago, compounded by an unresolved melancholy. Upon arriving at my mother's quarters, I found my grandmother also present. As I entered the courtyard, I could hear her scolding voice. "Do not think that just because you have given birth to a daughter you are remarkable. After all these years, you have not produced even a single son, worthless and filthy woman." I stood at the threshold, silent for a moment, steadying my breath before pushing the door open. My grandmother turned to me, donning a stiff yet affectionate smile, beckoning me closer. "Yuyo has arrived. Come here to grandmother." I discreetly glanced at my mother, who lay on the bed, her complexion ashen, and slowly approached my grandmother. She took my hand and said with a smile, "The doctor has just left. Your mother is merely suffering from her old ailment. Nothing serious." I obediently nodded in acknowledgement. After a brief moment, my grandmother, supported by Lady Li, departed. My mother leaned against the pillow, her eye socket sunken, lips darkened, yet she still endeavored to muster a smile for me. I felt a twinge of discomfort. Over the years, our time together has been scant. In my childhood, I yearned to be by her side, yet my grandmother always prohibited my visits, insisting that my mother needed peace to recuperate. Having witnessed my mother during her episodes of illness, I understood she had little time for me, so I ceased to demand her attention. Thus, our relationship remains distant. She instructed the servants, "You may all leave." Then she beckoned to me, "Io, come here." I slowly walked to her bedside and sat down. "Io, could you possibly stay here with your mother tonight?" I raised my eyes to meet hers and detected a faint plea in her murky gaze, nodding in agreement. My mother's room was perpetually infused with the scent of traditional Chinese medicine. This evening, she had specifically ordered incense to be burned, the heavy sandalwood mingling unpleasantly with the medicinal aroma. Perhaps due to the flickering candlelight, her complexion seemed somewhat improved compared to the daylight. I lay on my side, my hands awkwardly clasped over my chest. The candlelight flickered and extinguished. My mother's breathing grew labored. "Cough, cough, Io." I gently responded while keeping my eyes closed. Do you resent your mother for neglecting you?" "Mother needs to focus on her recovery. Yuyo understands." Her hand slowly reached for mine, warm and soft, enveloping my hand within her grasp. "Mother's days are numbered." My heart quivered at her words. "There is something I have kept from you." Hesitating for a long time whether to share it, "But if I do not tell you, it seems no one will remember that child." "What is it?" Her voice tinged with sorrow and grief. "You once had a younger sister." I was taken aback. In the imperial city, only the tale of a master predicting my auspicious fate had circulated, yet I was unaware of another child referred to as the disaster star. "If that child were still alive, and if you are destined to meet her again, please tell her for me that mother feels remorse." After a long silence, I finally responded, albeit hesitantly, "Alas." Her sighs seemed to encapsulate an indescribable melancholy and resentment. Sleep now, mother will accompany Io. My mother softly hummed an unfamiliar tune. This closeness was something I had longed for in my childhood but had never attained. Yet now, with her by my side, I felt only discomfort. In the middle of the night, I suddenly awoke. It was eerily quiet and cold. Beside me, my mother's hand lay half-clenched, already icy to the touch. Alarmed, I scrambled up and stumbled outside, shouting, "Someone help!" In the month following my mother's passing, I was plagued by nightmares, needing Lianhui to hold me to fall asleep. She claimed my mother was reluctant to leave me, thus visiting my dreams. She went to the market and bought a talisman, saying it would help if worn for a while. I mocked her for using a mere charm to placate me. Lianhui retorted, "If the miss believes it's useful, it will be." As we playfully bickered, Lady Li came to summon me again. My father, who had been absent for so long, returned suddenly, bringing with him a woman and a child. He instructed me to address the woman as Aunt Chin. I firmly barred the door, asserting, if she wishes to enter, she must first ask my mother in the afterlife for permission. In that moment, I cast aside the refined and demure image I had meticulously upheld. My grandmother, suppressing her anger, urged me, "Yuyo, your mother has passed. This family requires a matron. Do you wish for your father to have no home to return to?" Indeed. My father, who I seldom saw throughout the year, had not even returned for my mother's funeral. This head of the family, as my grandmother described, who was entangled in official duties, had wasted no time bringing a concubine home while my mother's remains were still warm. The child, sensing the woman's gaze, began to wail. My grandmother felt pity, yet dared not show it. I stubbornly obstructed the entrance. Then let grandmother consider whether she desires this granddaughter or an ill-begotten pair of strangers. My father erupted in anger, pointing a finger at me. You've been spoiled by your grandmother to the point of lawlessness. Utterly unreasonable." He raised his hand to strike me, only to be halted by my grandmother. "Oh, quickly stop. What if you mar that pretty face?" Ultimately, my grandmother decided that the child would stay while the woman was sent away. I released my grip, knowing this was the best outcome. Just a child, after all. The woman shot me a fierce look before departing, and I defiantly glared back. In March, the Empress hosted an autumn banquet, and my father took me to the palace. In terms of rank, he merely held a trivial position under the crown prince, hardly deserving of attending such a banquet. Yet the Empress had always treated me with kindness since childhood, never forgetting to include me at her feasts. She summoned me to her side, holding my hand and inspecting me with satisfaction, complimenting, "Yuyo has grown." Afterward, she cast a knowing glance at Wei Cheng, her expression laden with significance. Wei Cheng nodded to me. "How is Sister Yuyo faring these days?" Compared to the Empress, Wei Cheng bore a stronger resemblance to Emperor Wu, his elongated, deep-set eyes evoking an unsettling sense of being prey under his gaze. Wei Cheng, though lacking in talent and intelligence, endeavored to present himself as shrewd, resulting in an incongruent demeanor. Recently, rumors circulated in the imperial city that Wei Cheng had returned from the south with a dancer, graceful and alluring, who had captured his favor. No one doubted my future status, as I was already chosen by the Empress to be the crown princess. However, casual gossip persisted during meals. I was not particularly concerned, but the Empress, fearing I might harbor resentment, gently remarked, "Yuyo will reach womanhood in 6 months. At that time, this palace and the Emperor will surely present you with a generous gift." I smiled politely, expressing my gratitude, yet internally fretted. Damn Wei Cheng. As the banquet reached its zenith, a commotion erupted outside the hall. "Father, Mother, I have arrived late." A vibrant and carefree male voice rang from beyond the doors. Everyone in the hall turned their gaze toward the sound. A tall man clad in armor strode in. As he approached, I recognized him. His stature was as upright as a pine, his eyes gleaming like cold stars, and an aura of martial resolve surrounded him. He looked vaguely familiar. "Is that the 6th prince has returned?" I stood immobile, yet my ears perked up to eavesdrop as a nearby lady excitedly whispered to her maid, stealing glances at him. "So, this is the 6th prince? He appears quite presentable, even more so than Wei Cheng." Wei Cheng rose, his expression displeased. "6th brother? You returned to the capital without summons, disregarding father's authority." From his elevated seat, Emperor Wu chuckled. Calm down, Chinger. The sixth prince, Wei Lang, did not spare a glance for Wei Cheng and casually saluted the emperor before finding a seat for himself. The sixth prince, Wei Lang, is the most favored son of the current emperor, born to the renowned and ethereal concubine Gao, who passed away prematurely. At a tender age, Wei Lang was taken to the frontier by his uncle. Despite the Emperor Wu's repeated attempts to summon him back, he remained absent from the imperial capital. Though he may not reside within the city, his legends permeate its very essence. It is said that his portrait commands a fortune, fervently coveted by the young ladies of noble birth. In this moment, when he finds himself in a moment of indiscretion before the emperor, the latter instead bursts into hearty laughter, leaving others too intimidated to voice dissent. Wei Lang raises his cup and proclaims, "Your Majesty need not worry. I have returned alone and unaccompanied." The banquet proceeds, with dancers flowing in like a stream. I gaze at my father, who is intoxicated and flushed, feeling a mix of exasperation and disbelief. My eyes involuntarily drift to Wei Lang, who sits alone, his piercing gaze surveying the revelry until it is abruptly interrupted by a sharp crack. The Empress suddenly overturns the table, shattering her jade cup, clutching her chest in pain as she collapses. A stunned silence envelopes the room. "Mother, quickly summon the imperial physician," Wei Cheng cries, jolting everyone into action as chaos ensues. I stand frozen, overwhelmed and unsure. "Your Majesty," the Empress is spitting blood. A dark, viscous liquid spills from her lips, a clear sign of poisoning. In a fit of rage, Wei Cheng barks, "Arrest Wei Lang." The guards exchange glances, hesitant to act. The emperor furrows his brow and sternly inquires, "Crown Prince?" Only then does Wei Cheng regain his composure, lowering his head to stammer an explanation. "I merely mean that mother was poisoned after Wei Lang's return. This must surely be connected to him. Indeed, he is rather dim-witted." Wei Lang, hands raised in innocence, counters, "Your Majesty, you are wronging me. I have only just returned and have not even had contact with the Empress. How could I have poisoned her?" He casts a significant glance in my direction, adding, "Perhaps your Highness would be wiser to suspect those closer to the Empress." Suddenly, all eyes shift to me. It is true. I have been by the Empress's side throughout. I kneel, trembling, and plead, "Your Majesty, I would never dare." The hall falls into a hushed silence. No one dares to utter a word. The Emperor strides over to assist me, saying, "I believe it was not you, Yao, who did this." Wei Cheng, regaining his composure, bows and states, "Father, I shall go see how mother fares. Please investigate this matter thoroughly." With that, he casts a lingering, sharp look in my direction. "Help me. I am truly innocent." Upon returning home, I tossed and turned through a sleepless night. Even though the emperor professed his belief in my innocence, should an investigation ensue, I fear I would be implicated. Early the next morning, Lian Huai entered, her expression grave. "Miss, the Empress has passed away." This news struck me like a bolt from the blue. Just yesterday, she had been conversing with me, a living embodiment of grace and nobility. Yet now she lay poisoned before the eyes of all. A chill coursed down my spine. The Crown Prince, in a fit of rage over this matter, has been confined to the Changqiu Palace, while the investigation of the Empress's poisoning has fallen to the sixth prince. Lian Huai cast a cautious glance at me. "It is likely that the sixth prince will come to our residence shortly." I rose from my bed and had Lian Huai assist me in my grooming. No sooner had I finished than someone arrived from the front hall to summon me. When I entered, I found my father engaged in a tea session with Wei Lang. Perhaps emboldened by the Crown Prince's backing, my father displayed a remarkable disdain towards Wei Lang. He harbored aspirations of becoming the future father-in-law of the Crown Prince, which had led him to offend many in the political arena. However, due to Wei Cheng's presence, others were obliged to show him some measure of respect. "Your Highness." "I pay my respects," I said, bowing deeply. Wei Lang gently assisted me, saying, "Miss Pei, there is no need for such formalities. Today, I merely wish to engage in a casual conversation with you." I stepped aside, awaiting his inquiries. Yet, Wei Lang turned to my father and stated, "I wish to discuss some matters privately with the young lady, Minister Pei." My father awkwardly excused himself, leaving only the two of us in the hall. Wei Lang shed his courteous facade, reclining languidly in his chair, and remarked, "It appears that your relationship with your father is rather strained." It seems I wasted my politeness on him earlier. This man is exceedingly rude. I couldn't help but frown. I traveled a great distance specifically for Ah Yao. His implication that he had rushed back from the frontier felt more like a trivialization of the matter. Last night, his casual remark had deftly redirected the blame towards me. I lowered my gaze, remaining silent. Unperturbed, he continued, has Ah Yao found a suitable partner? Is it my crown prince brother, or does she favor another? This matter is beyond my control. I replied with an indifferent demeanor. Yu Yao is still young and must observe a 3-year mourning period for her mother. Wei Ling rested his chin on his hand, contemplating. After a moment, he suggested, then shall I request father to issue a decree for our betrothal? I could no longer contain my astonishment. Are we so familiar with one another? Over the years, I felt as if I had been branded with a mark of belonging to Wei Cheng. His words, once spoken, cast doubt upon his intentions to seize the throne. He laughed. Ah Yao, are you surprised? But you promised when we were young that you would marry me. I have cherished that memory during my 10 years at the frontier. My mind swirled, and a vague memory surfaced. I was about 5 years old at the 100 Flowers banquet, where I had greedily consumed 2 pieces of chestnut cake. Wei Cheng had rushed to inform my father, who, unable to refuse Wei Cheng's face, scolded me harshly. I had hidden away, weeping, when a youth with rosy lips and white teeth appeared. He wore an intricate silver earring that covered his entire ear, making him seem quite distinctive. Recognizing him, I had poured out my grievances against Wei Cheng, declaring that I would rather marry a dog or a eunuch than him. That youth had vowed to marry me someday. As I snapped back to reality, I instinctively glanced at his earlobe, which bore no trace of any ornamentation. Where are your earrings? Wei Ling teased, clapping his hands.
Ah.
So you remember only the earrings, not the person. Forget it, forget it. It seems the speaker was careless, while the listener took it to heart. All these years, it appears I was the only one who remembered our childhood promise. A month after the Empress's poisoning incident, concubine Liang was suddenly cast into the cold palace. Rumor has it that the emperor caught her personal maid consorting with a palace guard, who revealed that concubine Liang had tampered with the empress's food. When the emperor's men went to apprehend concubine Liang, she was inebriated, loudly proclaiming her imminent ascendance as the new empress. The emperor, enraged, nearly executed her on the spot. However, considering the Liang family's military contributions, he merely stripped them of their military authority, demoting them to commoners and granting concubine Liang a death sentence by her own hand. In an instant, the once glorious Liang household crumbled, drawing sympathy from many. With this matter resolved, my suspicions were cleared. My grandmother summoned a carriage for me to visit the White Horse Temple to pray and dispel my misfortunes. To my surprise, I encountered Wei Cheng there. Upon reaching the temple gate, a young monk informed me that a distinguished guest was visiting. Just as I was about to instruct the driver to turn back, I happened to cross paths with Wei Cheng's carriage. I pay my respects to His Royal Highness, I said. Wei Cheng appeared considerably more composed, his gaze less shadowed than before. What a coincidence to meet my sister Yu Yao today. Why don't we enter together? He dismounted quickly, closing the carriage curtains behind him. I vaguely discerned a woman in green seated inside. Your Highness has a guest? I inquired. Wei Cheng waved his sleeve dismissively. Just a maid. He claimed he was seeking a master for guidance, while I proceeded alone to the main hall.
Sister.
I turned around to see a girl in green with a veil. Her addressing me as sister stirred a sense of familiarity, though I was certain I had never heard her voice before. The girl stepped closer and inquired, Sister, are you well? I do not know you, I replied coolly. She paused for a moment, then laughed softly. Sister is destined to marry into the Crown Prince's residence as the principal consort, as the Crown Prince's first concubine. It is only right for me to call Miss Pei sister. Her words seemed to taunt me, yet I felt no anger. Seeing me remain unfazed, the woman in green remarked, Sister, rest assured, before you enter the manor, I shall dutifully attend to His Highness on your behalf. The more she sought to provoke me, the more serene I became. The following day after returning home, Wei Cheng dispatched a messenger bearing a box of South Sea pearls, claiming it was to atone for the disrespect shown by a maid in the manor, and stated that he would punish her with 3 days of fasting. Upon hearing this, I felt a sense of unease. That woman, though appearing delicate, might not survive such a punishment. I informed the imperial guard who delivered the gift to request that the crown prince spare her from this penalty. I remain uncertain if Wei Qing acquiesced to my request. On the day of my coming-of-age ceremony, grandmother insisted on a grand celebration, yet I maintained my stance to keep it modest, citing my mother's recent passing as a reason to limit the guest list to only a few close acquaintances. Father reprimanded me for squandering an opportunity to strengthen ties with his political colleagues. I chose to ignore him. Over the past 6 months, Pei Yuyan had been indulged by the matriarch, and with the arrival of her grandson, she paid little attention to me, which I found rather liberating. Before the banquet commenced, Wei Cheng sent congratulatory gifts along with a handwritten note. Without opening it, I handed it directly to Lian Huai. Accompanying Wei Cheng's gift was the 6th prince, Wei Lang. I stepped outside to greet him. After some time apart, he seemed less like the imposing general and more like an elegant young nobleman. Before I could perform the customary greeting, he charmingly clasped his hands and said, "It has been a while, Yao. Wei Lang is here to pay his respects." He looked as if he were performing on stage. I had little desire to engage in such formalities with him any longer. "What brings you here?" I inquired. Without a hint of hesitation, Wei Lang strode past me into the hall. "What did my royal brother send you?" "A pair of phoenix hairpins from the Empress." "You accepted them? You truly accepted them?" His tone, filled with inexplicable melancholy and inquiry, was quite thought-provoking. Suddenly, Wei Lang halted, turning to look at me earnestly, and said, "If you wish to become Empress, he is not your only option." I accepted the pins merely because they were valuable, yet in Wei Lang's eyes, it likely served as evidence of a mutual affection between Wei Cheng and myself. I clenched the handkerchief in my grasp, hesitating to reply. "Are you not afraid I will tell Wei Cheng and the Emperor?" Wei Lang raised his chin defiantly. "If you wish to tell, then go ahead." His arrogance made me want to kick him. Wei Lang enjoyed a far greater favor than Wei Cheng, yet the Emperor had unexpectedly named Wei Cheng as the crown prince. At that time, the Empress was not yet an empress, merely a lowly concubine, and the noble consort was still alive. Shortly after Wei Cheng's ascension, the noble consort succumbed to a sudden illness. The Emperor, in his grief, chose a commoner, Jiang, to be his empress and entrusted Wei Lang to her care. However, it was not long before Wei Lang's uncle came to take him away. "You mentioned you would personally deliver a gift to me. What is it?" Wei Lang's gaze was enigmatic. "You do not invite me in for a seat, yet expect to receive a gift? Given the presence of women, it might not be convenient for you to sit." "Very well." Wei Lang sighed deeply, pulling a stack of papers from his sleeve. "I present to you a villa on the outskirts of the city, accompanied by 2 skilled maidservants. Should you find the manor dull, you may stay there for a while. Is that satisfactory?" He handed me the deed. My eyes brightened, and I couldn't help but look up at him. Wei Lang's eyes twinkled with mirth. I quickly composed my expression, replying, "Then I must thank His Highness." Before departing, Wei Lang added, "By the way, I have heard that my royal brother dotes on a dancer in his household, and even summoned physician's son to prescribe some remedies for her pregnancy. Unfortunately, due to her frail condition, she could not be saved. Are you certain you wish to marry such a man?" I was taken aback. The image of the woman in green flashing through my mind. Though young, she was evidently in poor health. Wei Cheng was indeed a beast. It appeared as though Wei Cheng and Wei Lang were engaged in a competitive exchange, sending me gifts every few days. Today, it was a pair of white jade and gemstone ornaments. Tomorrow, I would receive a pure gold Guanyin statue blessed by a master. Becoming a subject of jest within the imperial city, I accepted their gifts without reservation, as they were all valuable items. As for the dancer in Wei Cheng's manor being pregnant, this information had not been made public. Had it not been for Wei Lang's revelation, I would have remained oblivious. However, I was genuinely troubled by the prophecy, often sighing at my reflection in the mirror. Regardless of its truth, as long as the prophecy existed, I could not escape Wei Cheng. Lian Huai praised me for maturing and becoming more contemplative. After much deliberation, I could only think of Wei Lang as a potential ally. He was handsome, capable in both civil and military pursuits, and possessed audacity. More importantly, unlike Wei Cheng, I found him somewhat likable. The thought of rebelling with him paled in comparison to marrying Wei Cheng. With this in mind, I occasionally expressed faint hints of affection to Wei Lang, intending to deceive him. He wrote that he would choose a day to enter the palace and seek an edict to formalize our union. I couldn't help but worry, asking him whether the martial emperor would agree. Wei Lang's handwriting exuded his arrogance. Do you know my uncle commands hundreds of thousands of troops? I was taken aback. So that was it. My heart eased somewhat. The notion of Phoenix fate was ultimately just a rumor. Surely, the martial emperor would not take it too seriously? Just as I awaited news from Wei Lang, filled with trepidation and hope, Lian Huai rushed in, exclaiming, Miss, Atuan is missing. I stumbled from the rocking chair. Atuan was the unusual white cat with heterochromia that Wei Lang had gifted me 2 months prior, a 5-month-old bundle of mischief. While Wei Lang himself was not charming, Atuan was utterly delightful. I personally handled Atuan's food each day and shared my bed with him at night. Lian Huai searched the room frantically. I asked, dazed, is he truly missing or? In my childhood, I had once found a cat, only for grandmother to take it away after 3 days, claiming it was a distraction. Later, I discovered its lifeless body in the corner of the garden. I hurried to the garden, Lian Huai trailing behind me. In the pond, there floated a small, lifeless body. I clenched my fists, feeling a wave of dizziness wash over me. It was always like this. It seemed they could never allow me to cherish anything. After being manipulated for over a decade, I had begun to believe that with Wei Lang's leniency, things could be different. I numbly moved towards the water, intent on retrieving Atuan. Lian Huai gripped my arm tightly, calling out, Miss. Grandmother arrived with a throng of people, frowning as she scolded me. Yu Yao, come back. What sort of behavior is this? Behind her stood a crowd of indignant maidservants and guards. Behind me, there was only Lian Huai. It felt as though an invisible line divided me from the Pei family. I gazed at her coldly, wanting to ask why she could not even tolerate a mere pet. Had I not done enough over the years? Behind her, Pei Yuyan was cowering, her expression guilty. Suddenly, I understood. It was you, wasn't it? Pei Yuyan avoided my gaze, retreating behind grandmother. Grandmother's face darkened. Yu Yao. You frightened your brother. With her backing, Pei Yuyan boldly made a face at me. Brother? I scoffed. My mother only bore me and my sister. What wild child could claim to be my brother? Do you see any resemblance to our father? It was true, though my father was not of exemplary character. He had a decent appearance, whereas Pei Yuyan had small eyes and thick lips, bearing no resemblance to him whatsoever. Grandmother was taken aback. How did you learn of your sister's situation? Who told you? I sneered. Does it matter? In your eyes, is her being of the Pei lineage more significant? A flicker of doubt crossed her eyes, but it was interrupted by Pei Yuyan's cry of grandmother. She shielded Pei Yuyan, shouting at me, How dare you speak like that? Your brother is a legitimate Pei heir, already recorded in the family register. Pei Yuan, with his hands on his hips, exclaimed, I merely wanted to play with it. It was the creature that bit me first. I merely stumbled, and it fell in. As he spoke, he raised his chubby hand, resembling a pig's trotter's, in front of the old lady, whining about his pain. The old lady hurriedly consoled him. Yuan adores the raccoon, so tomorrow, grandmother will send someone to buy a few. She is too stingy. We shall not accept her gifts. The words were rather jarring to the ears. I endured for a while, but ultimately, I could not restrain myself and interjected. Do you know who gifted that raccoon to you? Pei Yuan looked puzzled. I smiled with a sinister expression and continued. It was the esteemed 6th prince who bestowed it upon you. Pei Yuan remained unfazed. I pressed on. The 6th prince bears the title of Jade-Faced Yama. The lives he holds in his hands number not in the thousands, but in the hundreds. Someone like you, he could extinguish with but a flick of his finger. Pei Yuan trembled in fear, too frightened to even cry. The old lady's face flushed with anger as she commanded me to silence. My smile deepened at the corners of my mouth. By the way, he harbors a grudge. Perhaps he will come looking for you tonight. I felt a twinge of anxiety as I invoked Wei Lang's name to instill fear. The old lady was so furious that she nearly called for someone to force me to kneel in the ancestral hall. Amidst the commotion, the steward arrived with news. Someone from the palace has come. Please, miss, proceed to the hall to receive the decree. Although I had anticipated this, the decree arrived sooner than I had expected. The one delivering the edict was De Gonggong, a confidant of Emperor Minggu. He was engaged in cordial conversation with my father, both wearing expressions of delight. Upon seeing me, De Gonggong's demeanor shifted. By the heavenly mandate of the emperor, it is decreed. Pei girl Yu Yao, possessing a virtuous nature and outstanding appearance, is hereby appointed as Empress, to enter the central palace, as the position of palace master remains vacant. Thus it is ordained. The proclamation left me momentarily dazed. The old lady hesitated. De Gong Gong, you. He shot her a cold glance. Does old Madame Pei have any objections to the emperor's decree? The old lady hastily shook her head. I dare not. I knelt in a daze on the spot. De Gong Gong urged, Miss Pei, please accept the decree. The old lady and my father continuously urged me forward. Numbly, I took the edict from his hands. After De Gong Gong departed, the old lady sighed, pondering what to do next. My father stroked his beard and remarked jovially, Yu Yao entering the palace as Empress is a good fortune. Why does mother appear so troubled? The old lady gritted her teeth in resentment. If one were to consider the present emperor, he is even older than you. If Yu Yao does not bear a dragon heir before his passing, whom shall we Peis rely upon? An empress with no offspring is merely a figurehead. I looked at the old lady in astonishment. Mother, why fret? Once Yu Yao enters the palace, she will become the Empress Dowager. Even if it is just a nominal title, it will still grant our Pei family some prestige. The old lady seemed to find some logic in my words, nodding slightly. Alas, she is ultimately a daughter. Her worth is limited. We can only hope she may assist Yuan in his future career. The two exchanged glances, accepting this outcome with joy and even beginning to envision a bright future for the Pei household. I lowered my gaze and coldly declared, I do not wish to marry. My father, growing impatient, retorted, You have become increasingly audacious, daring to utter such treasonous words. If this were to leak, it could cost you your head. Our family is known for its lack of wit. The two of them had just spoken so recklessly about the current emperor without fear. And yet they worried for my safety over my simple declaration of unwillingness to marry. The old lady, with a stern expression, chastised me. The fortune you possess is entirely due to the blessings of our ancestors. Now you wish to squander it and defy the decree? Can one defy a decree? Certainly not. I clenched my fists helplessly. In the days leading up to my entry into the palace, Wei Lang continued to send numerous letters, all of which I returned. The day before my entrance, Wei Lang audaciously sneaked into the estate. I crouched in the bathtub, submerging myself beneath the water's surface, feeling both vexed and angered. Wei Lang turned his back, his ears flushed crimson, his voice wavering. I did not know you were bathing. I snapped in exasperation. How could you not know yet still find your way to the bathing chamber with such accuracy? Wei Lang remained silent. Once I emerged from the bathing chamber, wrapped securely in a towel, Wei Lang had regained his composure. Yet, the way he averted his gaze betrayed him. The more he acted this way, the more irritable I felt. What are you doing here? Wei Lang adjusted his sleeves, lowering his posture. Since you refused to accept my letters, I came in person. And what of it? I came to elope with you, of course. Wei Lang's tone was part earnest, part jest, perhaps even a hint of testing. I rolled my eyes at him, swinging my leg nonchalantly. Rest assured, sixth prince, by this time tomorrow, I shall be your Empress Dowager. Wei Lang clicked his tongue, indignantly remarking, Pei Yu Yao, you truly are not bright. With that, he leapt out the window and departed. The bright moon hung in the night sky, and the evening breeze flowed gently. I placed a hand over my heart, feeling an inexplicable sense of vague disappointment. On the day of my entry into the palace, the entirety of the Pei family gathered to send me off, the old lady and my father glowing with pride as they stood at the gate to receive congratulations. Pei Yuan whispered, She is finally leaving. From now on, the Pei estate will be mine. I shot him a glare. The last time I frightened him, he had endured several days of fever, yet he still did not learn his lesson. The old lady hurriedly covered his mouth. Her face filled with embarrassment as she approached me to bid farewell, her expression a mixture of reluctance and sorrow. Yu Yao, before she could finish, I raised my hand for Lien Huai to assist me into the carriage. The old lady's words stuck in her throat. I lifted the curtain, casting one last glance at the grand gates of the Pei estate. This was the place I had called home for over a decade. As the moment of farewell approached, I felt not a shred of sadness or reluctance. It was merely a transition from one unwelcome place to another. The carriage rolled onward towards the palace. Due to the recent passing of Jiang Ho, The ceremony for the new empress was conducted with utmost simplicity. Thus, I was conveyed into the central palace in a palanquin. Wei Lang had once mentioned to me that during his campaigns, he had witnessed a custom among a prairie tribe where marriage ceremonies were held on horseback. I expressed my curiosity. Do all the tribesmen ride horses? How do those who cannot ride get married? Wei Lang laughed at me. If you like it, once I teach you to ride, we shall hold one ourselves. After which, he added, we shall enact all that you desire, as if such words could convey his grandiosity. Yet, I found it foolish and firmly stated that such a laborious affair as marriage should be minimized. In truth, I found myself relieved to have avoided such extravagance. The palace matrons informed me that the emperor, feeling sentimental, had decreed that no one was to disturb the arrangements within the central palace. Hence, even the wedding candles remained unlit. It was perhaps for the best, sparing me the constant reminder that I was wed to an old man. Once the matrons departed, Lian Huai approached to massage my shoulders. Miss, you must be tired. I smiled faintly. IV merely sat in a palanquin for half an hour. How could I be tired? Lian Huai hesitated, wanting to speak but holding back, her eyes urging me to prompt her. If there is something to say, just say it. Today, His Royal Highness the Crown Prince and the Sixth Prince rode closely behind us. However, the Crown Prince was sent back midway by the Emperor's orders, while the Sixth Prince followed us all the way. Oh, de Gonggong inquired about the Sixth Prince's intentions. He stated that he admired the new Empress and took it upon himself to escort her into the palace. No wonder I heard a commotion from behind the procession today, miss. Do you think the Sixth Prince? Lian Huai's words were interrupted by the sound of the door opening. Your Highness. The Emperor has suddenly fallen ill and is in a coma. Please, you must attend to him. Outside the Zhongqian Hall, a throng of princes and princesses knelt. Leading them was Wei Chong, followed closely by Wei Lang. De Gonggong led me directly into the hall. The yellow curtains hung in layers, and a royal physician stood with his head bowed at the side. You have arrived. A robust voice emerged from behind the curtains, sounding far from the state of sudden illness. A hand, marked with age spots, parted the drapes, and De Gonggong promptly stepped forward to hold them open. The imperial physician and master to have both withdrawn. The Mingwu Emperor sat before the bed, a smile that was almost enigmatic gracing his lips. Do you find yourself perplexed? I lowered my head in silence. He gestured toward a pastry on the table. I did not anticipate that the Crown Prince would go to such lengths for you. Beside the pastry lay a tarnished silver needle on a white cloth. I quietly distanced myself from the matter, asserting, this has nothing to do with a commoner. Incorrect. The Emperor replied with a chuckle. I knelt, bowing my head even lower, unsure of where I had faltered, yet it seemed that simply acknowledging my fault was the right course. He softened his tone. You are now my Empress. You should refer to yourself as this humble servant. I pressed my lips together, feeling a deep discomfort. The Taoist master Wang Chen indicated that you possess the fate of an Empress. Rather than inciting rivalry between my two sons, it would be better for you to embrace the role of my Empress. He rose and approached me, lifting my chin with a single finger. It felt as though he were scrutinizing me, or perhaps peering through me to examine others. I struggled to suppress my revulsion. 20 years ago, Jiang Fu was as youthful as you, entering the palace and giving birth to the Crown Prince, thus becoming my Empress. He sighed deeply. I believed my heart would forever belong to Lang's mother. Alas, she proved too domineering. The Mingwu Emperor lamented, since Jiang Fu departed. I have found myself at a loss. Perhaps, after 2 decades of companionship, I had unknowingly come to love her. There was a note of regret and wistfulness in his voice that sent a chill down my spine. Being privy to such royal secrets was a perilous affair, particularly concerning the Emperor. He supported his waist as he returned to the bedside. Cheng'o's actions tonight have truly wounded this father's heart. A sinister smile crept upon his lips. Encountering such scenes upon my entrance to the palace was still too much for me to bear. The Mingwu Emperor continued to smirk for a while before suddenly speaking to me in a softer tone. I have grown old. I once thought that by removing you, they would find harmony. My heart raced, cold sweat trickling down my back. He waved his hand dismissively. Over the years, I have neglected to discipline Ching'er, and as a result, he does not trust me enough. Empress, it is your responsibility to manage the harem. I hope you and the Pei family shall not disappoint me. He emphasized the name Pei significantly. I hurriedly bowed my head in acquiescence. As I departed, The emperor's sigh was laced with a chilling intent. Why is he in such a hurry? I had already made my decision, alas. Trust? On the night of Zhang's poisoning, apart from myself, the Mingwu emperor had remained by her side. How could a father who had personally slain his own empress expect Wei Cheng to trust him? I summoned Wei Cheng. Upon entering the side hall, he carelessly tugged at the hem of my garment. Did my sister Yao summon me? He did not even pretend to uphold decorum. Impudent. Unable to contain myself, I summoned all my strength and struck him hard across the face. I had long harbored the desire to do so. I thought I would never have the opportunity. Yet he had so conveniently offered me the chance. Wei Cheng gritted his teeth, incredulously covering his face, then erupted into a manic laughter. After his laughter subsided, he stepped back, creating distance between us, and obediently asked, "Why did Mother summon me?" I assumed a posture befitting an elder and replied, "You know well that as I have just entered the palace, I need someone attentive by my side to assist the emperor." Wei Cheng's gaze darkened. "I have noticed a talented woman in your household. I found her quite compatible during our last encounter." I held my ground under Wei Cheng's scrutiny, though inwardly, I was anxious he might refuse. Just as I contemplated leveraging my status against him, Wei Cheng readily acquiesced. "I will bring her here tomorrow." A quiet sigh of relief escaped me. At the break of dawn, Wei Cheng indeed brought the woman to the central palace. Dressed in a pale green gown, resembling a delicate green plum blossom, she lifted her veil to reveal a face strikingly similar to mine. Lian Hui gasped, "Miss." My suspicions were finally confirmed. I instructed Lian Hui to withdraw and turned to her. "How should I address you?" The woman in green smiled faintly, yet her eyes betrayed a hint of melancholy. "I am nameless. My husband gave me the name Wansue." Observing her expression, it was evident that this husband was not Wei Cheng. Husband? He is the family I was sold to as a child. I have been his child bride since the age of 7. I recalled hearing that life as a child bride was seldom pleasant. A frown creased my brow as images of her at 7, serving her in-laws and an indulgent husband, filled my mind. Wansue laughed softly. "My husband is a learned and virtuous gentleman. Spare me your unwarranted assumptions and pity." I pursed my lips. By her account, it seemed that her family had not mistreated her. However, being brought back from Jiangnan by Wei Cheng likely involved some manipulation on his part. The Mingwu emperor feigned illness for over half a month, during which time the crown prince Wei Cheng naturally assumed the role of regent. Wei Lang, however, remained an outsider. Wei Cheng's inexperience in governance, coupled with his obstinacy and penchant for unilateral decisions, eventually sparked some controversy within the court. A few bold officials dared to submit memorials of impeachment against him. To their surprise, Wei Cheng responded not with anger but with laughter, inviting those officials to a banquet at the crown prince's residence. The following day, those officials, along with their families, resigned and returned home. Thus, the controversy was temporarily quelled, yet the underlying grievances against Wei Cheng continued to fester, growing deeper by the day. The Mingwu emperor had managed to create a faction, yet he still lacked a catalyst. That catalyst was I. While the palace appeared tranquil on the surface, a storm of anxiety brewed beneath. The Mingwu emperor finally issued his command. "Tomorrow night, Chenger will stay at the Yenyun Terrace." "Tell me, would the offense of offending a nation's mother suffice for the crown prince's deposition?" I respectfully replied, "I shall abide by your majesty's wishes." He placed a piece on the chessboard and looked up at me with approval. "The Pei family has raised you well." I smiled politely, but inwardly I scoffed. Indeed, the Pei family has raised me exceptionally well. Upon returning to the palace, I began instructing Lian Hui and Wansue to pack their belongings. Wansue remained motionless, leaning softly against the doorframe. Lian Hui, busy with her tasks, urged her. "Second miss, could you please hurry?" Wansue remained still for a long while before asking me, "Why? With the same bloodline and the same face, can you be the empress, while I cannot?" I was momentarily taken aback. Indeed, with our shared lineage, why was I granted the position while she was not? It was all the fault of that loquacious old Taoist. After some contemplation, I replied, "Since we look alike, why not take my place as Pei Yuan?" The moment the words left my mouth, I felt it was inappropriate. No. It is too late for you to want to be Pei Yuan. The palace is on the brink of upheaval." Wansue rolled her eyes at me, then lowered her head. her hand gently resting on her abdomen as she murmured, "Here resides the sole bloodline of the current crown prince." My jaw dropped in disbelief. Lianhui gasped, her eyes wide. "The emperor is aging. It is time he abdicates." A shocking notion surged within me. From the moment I was born, it seems I have been a harbinger of misfortune. When Wei Qing sought to usurp me, revelers mocked my husband, claiming he deserved his fate. Wan Sui's expression grew increasingly frenzied. "I shall claim the position of Empress. Then, who would dare call me a calamity?" She lifted her sleeve, revealing her delicate arms marred by grotesque scars. "Wei Qing is a coward. These scars are what I bore for you. Sister, would you help me intercept the sixth prince tomorrow night? Just one night will suffice." Lianhui and I deliberated all day within the palace. As night fell, Wei Qing indeed became intoxicated and stayed at the Yanyan Terrace, while the Mingwu Emperor's ailment coincidentally worsened to a critical state. Most of the palace's inhabitants flocked to the emperor's side. Lianhui and I donned inconspicuous attire. Just before we set off, Wan Sui called out to me, asking, "By the way, do you still need your pay residence?" I was momentarily taken aback and waved at her, saying, "As you wish." Suddenly recalling something, I stepped back and advised her, "Take it easy. It would be better if you continue to honor our mother's memorial tablet." She smiled gently, lowering her gaze, and nodded. Together with Lianhui, we exerted immense effort to escape the palace through a secret passage. "Miss, where are we headed?" Lianhui inquired, aware that we had a crucial task to accomplish that night. My legs trembled, and I swallowed hard, attempting to appear composed as I replied, "To the residence of the sixth prince that was bestowed upon me." Under the cover of darkness, we successfully arrived at the manor, where only an elderly steward and 2 martial maids awaited us. I instructed the maids to prepare hot water for my bath and change of clothes. As Lianhui assisted me in dressing, she expressed her confusion. "Miss, why are you bothering with your appearance at such a late hour?" I gazed at my reflection in the mirror, tears silently streaming down my face. The so-called destiny of a virtuous matriarch was nothing but a command from the Mingwu Emperor to seduce Wei Qing, or a scheme devised by my sister to sacrifice my allure to entice him. To hell with the notion of maternal virtue. Despite my bitterness, I had to fulfill my obligations. As I debated whether to replace my crimson silk gown with something lighter, Wei Lang arrived sooner than I had anticipated. With a loud thud, he jumped through the window, his tone nonchalant. "You seem to be in high spirits, still finding time to groom yourself." Startled, I clutched my chest and glared at him. "Wei Lang, are you out of your mind? Why can't you enter through the front door of your own residence?" Only then did Wei Lang scrutinize me seriously, his gaze fleeting and his cheeks slightly flushed. "You are being quite audacious, Pei Yuyo." I glanced down at my attire, suddenly feeling shy. Lianhui discreetly excused herself, leaving an awkward silence in the room. "Oh, dear." I summoned my courage, fanning my forehead, and feigned a delicate tone. "I feel rather faint." Wei Lang's eyes darkened. As I had predicted, he approached and steadied me. However, his support was directed towards the couch. What a lecher. He is no different from Wei Qing. I bit my lip, suppressing the urge to strike him, and leaned against his chest as I sat down. The room was enveloped in silence, the only sounds being the crackling of the red candles. I found myself at a loss for words. Wei Lang's breathing grew heavier, causing his chest to quiver intensely. Is this man a beast? How can he breathe so heavily? Confused, I looked up at him, only to find Wei Lang's lips twitching, barely suppressing laughter, his face turning crimson. "What's so funny?" I couldn't help but punch his chin lightly. At last, he burst into hearty laughter. I sat there with a dark expression, waiting for him to compose himself. Once my patience wore thin, he finally calmed down. "Pei Yuyo, such matters are not suited for you. It would be better to speak plainly, if you have something to say." Although the mirth lingered on his face, his tone remained earnest. Strangely, I found myself wanting to trust him. "Then, can you stay tonight?" I asked, my heart racing with daring resolve. Wei Lang grasped my shoulders, our eyes locking, his gaze imposing. "Do you even realize what you are asking?" I nodded defiantly. Wei Lang held my chin firmly. "Do you know what I am sacrificing tonight?" Of course, I understood. It was the imperial throne. "Pei Yuyo, what do you intend to offer in exchange?" I was left speechless. "Then I shall gift you a wife. What if you don't want her?" The more he spoke, the weaker my resolve became. After all, it was obvious that the throne outweighed my worth. Wei Lang's palms were warm, his hawk-like eyes locked onto me. I want her. But what if she denies me after tonight? I gritted my teeth, deciding to take the plunge. I kicked Wei Lang onto the couch and, lifting my skirts, pressed myself against him. Then let us consummate tonight. As the hour of the rooster approached, I pushed away Wei Lang's arm, enduring the aches in my body as I stealthily slipped out of bed and cautiously exited the room. Lian Huai had been swatting mosquitoes for quite some time. I grimaced, rubbing my waist, while Lian Huai shed a tear for my plight. Time was of the essence. We hastily made our escape. Sister, this is all I can do for you. You must fend for yourself now. As I walked along the southern road, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. However, before I could fully relax, the sound of a galloping carriage erupted behind us. In an instant, the carriage halted before us. Lian Huai anxiously poked my side. Miss, do you think it's someone from the palace or from the manor? How could they catch up to us so quickly? A figure leaped down from the carriage. It was the two martial maids sent by Wei Lang. This is bad. Miss Pei, where are you headed? We are here to accompany you. I glanced behind them, but saw no sign of Wei Lang. I forced a smile. Where is your master? The two maids exchanged puzzled glances. Our master is you. Upon seeing you leaving, we hurried to catch up. The older maid, Da Huang, added, since His Highness bestowed us upon you, you have been our master. Her words warmed my heart. Initially, I had hesitated to bring them along, fearing they might inform Wei Lang of our whereabouts. Yet, with their loyalty now evident, it seemed acceptable to take them with us. I rubbed my waist and immediately pulled Lian Huai onto the carriage. As Da Huang drove, she inquired, Miss, where do you plan to go? To Jiangnan. I wish to see the place where my sister once lived. The carriage journeyed southward, stopping intermittently. With the strong and capable Da Huang and Xiahua present, no one dared to approach us. News reached us that the Mingwu emperor had passed away, and the crown prince Wei Chong had ascended the throne. That very night, the main palace was engulfed in flames, and the newly appointed Empress Pei perished in the inferno. It was clear that this fire was instigated by Wang Cui. After Wei Chang's ascension, he dismissed a significant number of officials, creating a pressing need for personnel within the court, leading to the unprecedented early initiation of the imperial examinations. After 3 months of travel, Lian Huai and I finally reached Jiangnan and purchased a residence. The scenery and customs here were indeed vastly different from those of the capital, and the cuisine suited my palate wonderfully. As Lian Huai entwined wisteria around the swing, she marveled, the second miss is the only favored concubine in the harem. How impressive. I lazily tapped my toes against the ground, closing my eyes in bliss. The sunlight was delightful, often lulling me into slumber. Lian Huai continued her chatter. Miss has become lazier lately. You've gained weight and are always sleepy. After a pause, she added, well, even your little visitor hasn't he come in 3 months. I sprang to my feet, nearly gasping for breath. This is terrible. Tears welled in my eyes as I lay back on the bed. Lian Huai, balancing a bowl in one hand and placing her hands on her hips, declared, Miss, it's time to get up and drink your soup. Since I had been diagnosed with pregnancy 7 days ago, Lian Huai had insisted I consume black-bone chicken soup for an entire week. Boo, I've been drinking it for 7 days. Look at my face, it's ashen. All you care about is the unborn little master, forgetting about me. Your miss. Having indulged in leisurely days, I realized that Lian Huai was growing increasingly unafraid of me. Even as I lay there, a mess of tears and snot, she remained expressionless, nodding. You are right. There is no longer a miss. Henceforth, I shall address you as Madam. She further complained, since becoming pregnant, Madam has become increasingly temperamental. I indignantly pulled the blanket over my head, burying myself in it. After a lengthy wait, just as I was about to drift off again, Lian Huai still hadn't come to coax me. I cautiously pulled back the covers and suddenly locked eyes with Wei Lang. What do you want? I nearly jumped out of my skin. Wei Lang caught my arm. Chuckling, I came to acknowledge the child. Please, don't frighten a pregnant woman. I shot him a glare. Wei Lang retorted, then why did you run away, Pei Yuyo? Well, it seems he has come to seek retribution. As I turned my eyes, forcing a few tears to spill forth, I remarked, that night I pondered, after all, I am your nominal mother, and our union is ill-fated. Wei Lang fell silent. Moreover, you witnessed my marriage to your father without a flicker of emotion. It appears you harbor no genuine feelings for me. Wei Lang raised an eyebrow. I continued, though it transgresses moral propriety. Wei Chong was still able to poison the late emperor for my sake. His affections for me run deeper than yours. Initially, I was merely fabricating a story. But as I spoke, I inadvertently convinced myself, turning away in frustration. Who told you that it was Wei Chong who administered the poison? Wei Lang's voice, laced with a chilling tone, echoed behind me. I turned in surprise. The poison that afflicted the emperor was my doing. Wei Lang's expression was grave, devoid of jest. This revelation truly caught me off guard. I opened my mouth, stammering. So you dare to poison even your own father? You are quite the devoted son. Wei Lang shot me a piercing glare, remaining silent for a long moment before slowly speaking. On the night Jiang was poisoned, the symptoms bore a striking resemblance to those my mother exhibited years ago. The poison he discovered that night was merely a ruse. The true toxin had already permeated his very bones. I was left speechless. Wei Lang, having learned from Lian Huai that I had been bedridden for 2 days, insisted on taking me for a stroll. As we prepared to leave, Xiao Hua, upon seeing Wei Lang, froze momentarily before respectfully presenting him with a letter. Your Highness, this is a report on the lady's daily activities from yesterday. Would you like to review it now? My eyes widened in disbelief as I glanced between the two, exclaiming, You deceivers. Wei Lang pressed me down, saying, Why are you crying? I had intended to wait until the court settled before seeking you out. Yet you concealed such a delightful surprise from me. Xiao Hua, unfazed, explained, My lady, we did not deceive you. We merely acted upon His Highness's instructions before departing, and you did not specify that we could not inform His Highness of your whereabouts. Fine, let it be, I conceded. Wei Lang led me through the estate, but after a few steps, I began to seek out a place to rest. With no other choice, he obliged my whims and pushed me on the swing. Alas! I sighed discontentedly. Wei Lang remarked, Do those with child often exhibit such melancholy? I pondered anxiously. Do you think that now Wei Chong has ascended the throne, he may turn against you? Wei Lang replied, The 300,000 troops at my back are no trifles. I lamented. I never imagined my tenure as Empress would be so fleeting, lasting merely a month. Wei Lang countered, If you find it unsatisfactory, I can easily reclaim the title for you. When my pregnancy began to show, concubine Wan within the palace experienced a premature birth, delivering a dragon son. I heard that the Pei family had sent gifts to concubine Wan, which had rendered her somewhat unwell. Wei Chong, both elated and enraged, executed a sweeping purge of the Pei household, subsequently elevating the common-born concubine Wan to Empress, mirroring the late emperor's actions. The old matriarch places her hopes on you. Wishing to climb the social ladder through the second Miss, Lian Huai fanned me, her voice filled with indignation. Not a single member of the family possessed a clear mind. At such a time, they ought to be distancing themselves instead of drawing closer. I shook my head. Wei Lang had mentioned a few days prior that he needed to return to the capital for matters of importance. I was uncertain when he might return. He simply does not care for me. If he did, how could he abandon us, a widow and an orphan? I lamented. Lian Huai remained silent. Wah. I sobbed. Lian Huai retorted, Enough. You need not only thunder without rain. Your lamentations are giving me a headache.
Ik leerde heaviously.
Unperturbed, Lian Huai persisted, Miss, do you know who this year's top scholar is? I continued to glare. I hear he is quite handsome and charming. Is there a portrait? Lian Huai disdainfully ignored my question. The new top scholar appears to hail from Jiangnan and has garnered considerable favor in the court, even collecting various trinkets from Jiangnan to please the new empress. This, I mused, sounded rather dubious. However, Wei Chong, being the schemer he is, likely had not considered the implications. Due to the tumultuous journey during the early stages of my pregnancy, Wei Lang forbade me from leaving the courtyard, and I relied solely on Lian Huai, who would gossip with the townsfolk while shopping for provisions each morning. Although Wei Lang was absent, his letters arrived with great frequency. Out of boredom, I found myself scolding him through my replies, which became even more frequent. As the months progressed, my mobility became increasingly limited, allowing me to sit only in the garden. I heard that the dragon's son, upon birth, was in poor health, and his full moon celebration was delayed for 3 months before he was formally declared heir. Miss, you've wet yourself, Lian Hui pointed out, gesturing beneath me. At her words, I glanced down, only to see my round belly. Yet I could feel a dampness beneath me. You wretched girl. I nearly fainted from frustration, urging Lian Hui, quickly, summon the midwife. Fortunately, Wei Lang had invited a skilled midwife to reside next door. Lying on the bed with my legs spread, the pain beneath me intensified with each passing moment. I gripped Lian Hui's hand, demanding, where is that scoundrel Wei Lang? Did he not promise he would return before I gave birth? Lian Hui waved her hands in innocence and panic, just as I felt I might lose consciousness. The door burst open with a loud bang. Ayao, I'm back. I turned my head towards the entrance in disbelief. It truly was Wei Lang. He rushed towards me, his expression fraught with worry. Why do you insist on trying to give birth while I'm away? I was about to curse him when the midwife shouted from the side, My lady, it's time to push. The words of reproach lodged in my throat, refusing to come out. I followed the midwife's instructions, pushing with all my might. Wei Lang, even more anxious than I, grasped my hand, squeezing it until it turned pale. It hurts. Let go. Ayao, do not fear. Just hold my hand tightly, and it won't hurt. The more I cried out, the more tense he became, squeezing with increasing force. Wei Lang, you dog. Stop squeezing me. I could endure no longer and shouted with all my strength. Only then did Wei Lang react, abruptly releasing my hand. With my cry, the midwife exclaimed in delight, It's coming, it's coming. The child was whisked away for cleaning, and Wei Lang knelt beside my bed, opening his mouth in shock, tears streaming down his face. Why are you crying? I asked weakly. He wiped his tears furiously, choking back his emotions. I just finished dealing with the issues in the capital and rushed back without pause, nearly missing it. Wei Lang added, Pei Yueying, could you refrain from giving me such fright? Concealing your pregnancy and secretly giving birth. Are you trying to scare me to death? Listen to him. He has a perfectly sound mouth but cannot articulate a coherent thought. However, I keenly noted his previous statement and asked with curiosity, what matters in the capital? Wei Lang hesitated before replying, Wei Chong is dead. The day after the little prince's full moon banquet, he was found drowned in Taihu Lake. It was deemed too disgraceful to say he drowned, so your sister suppressed the news and publicly declared that the new emperor, in a drunken stupor, attempted to indulge a palace maid and, in his excitement, perished.
Oh,
They cannot be serious. Since the young prince is too young to ascend the throne, the new top scholar has been appointed as regent, and the Empress has become the Dowager Empress, ruling from behind the curtain. I knew something was amiss with them. Wei Lang took my hand and kissed it gently. Now that we have discussed their affairs, let us speak of ours. I lifted my eyelids to gaze at him. Ours? What matters? Wei Lang's gaze burned with intensity. For instance, our child. What shall we name him? This indeed posed a question. I pondered seriously for a moment before suggesting. I believe both my sister and I are quite formidable. Let us name him Wei Niu. The end. Thank you for listening. We shall meet again in the next story.